Recruiting Process and Interview Methods by Khelidze. Chapter 1 Introduction. In this chapter, I will give the main background of the research topic, goals of the thesis, and the structure of the topics I have analyzed. For almost 2 decades, analysis of the employment relationship has focused on the many uncertainties surrounding the emergence and the consequences of human resource management. The role of human resources has significantly changed in the modern age. The crucial thing in the organization's activities is the human resource management and the main source of competitiveness of the organization in the human resource. They determine the efficiency of the organization's activities, and HR managers play a major role in the selection and use of the employees. That is why the most efficient guarantee of effective performance of the organization is to plan and manage human resources. Therefore, the huge responsibility comes on our topic, recruiting process and interview methods. As long as it is transparent, fast and high quality, the company will be provided by qualified and competent employees by which an organization can reach its goals and objectives. Moreover, enhance company performance, customer satisfaction, productivity, development, creativity, and innovation. Hence, the goals of the thesis are to find out process of recruiting and the types of interviews as long as they are the key stages of the recruitment. During the interview, the employer takes their impression of the applicants based on appearance and interactions. Therefore, interviews are a perfect way of measuring a potential employee's skills and qualities. Furthermore, the research is aiming to compare recruiting process of some industries and what kind of methods they use for selecting the best candidates in order to gain efficient results. The thesis consists of 8 chapters. This chapter introduces and provides context of the thesis, general background of the topic, research goals and solutions, the structure of the analyzed topics, and methodology. The following chapter contains the labor market from the macro and microeconomic aspects, which is divided into internal and external ones and into primary and secondary markets, how they are related to the HR management development. In the third chapter, there is discussed human resources management role in an organization. Furthermore, HR management systems are analyzed with their contemporary models. In the fourth chapter is explained steps in the recruiting process that starts with hiring an applicant for a job position and goes through the 3 main phases: planning, recruiting, and employee selection. The fifth chapter introduces the human resource management in the Bank of Georgia, analyzed and discussed the recruitment and selection process of the given bank. Also, how are the steps of the hiring process proceeding? The sixth chapter introduces the different interview methods in the different industries and how they compare each other or what they have common, and the job interview in one of the most crucial phases, if not the most crucial, toward efficient employment. The seventh chapter describes the steps in the hiring process, which consists of the apply for the job, resting, background checking, and job offer. How these stages differ and are performed in the several industries of the business. In conclusion, in the eighth chapter, the study is concluded and discussions and implications are provided. Overall, compare the recruiting process of some industries and the difference of the methods they use for selecting appropriate candidates in order to gain efficient results and find the best solution in order to increase productivity. Methodology. The main subject of this research is the recruiting process and interview methods in the Bank of Georgia, which is the leading bank in Georgia. The human resources are the drivers of the nowadays companies because today the world is as challengeable as never has been before. So we discuss what are the characteristics and features and how the employers have to identify prospective employees to fit their traits and features to their organization's requirements in order to gain productivity and competitiveness. As the main objective of the research is the approach of the bank towards recruiting and selection methods. We observed how the bank focuses on education and knowledge as a long-term successful strategy, since they are deeply convinced that education and knowledge support and their public sharing will be reflected in the welfare of the society. Furthermore, how they make selection and hiring and what are their key requirements. For the purpose of the study, data was collected from the several resources, such as books, articles, websites, and so on. There was analyzed the theoretical part written in the books and articles, which were linked to the approaches of the selection models in order to make comparison of the commonly used and key methods. Also collected real information from the Bank of Georgia in order to find out how does the theory work in the real organization and how it helps in gaining the new talents and developing the existing ones. Chapter 2: Labor Markets: Macro and Microeconomic Aspects. Labor market isn't defined as a real physical place, but the concept where the different labor forces compete. Market which is characterized by continuously growing demand for labor and available supply of workers. Characterized by enormous difference between qualified intellectual and induced physical labor, different earning and productivity factors, which has everlasting impact on the business cycle fluctuation and of course on economy in general. Inflexible wages, high unemployment rate, and labor market outcomes affects the transmission of shocks on marginal costs, inflation, and so on, and which is worth affect the transmission of the monetary policy to the economy. Furthermore, in the labor market, we should underline the real changes and factors which have strong and sometimes destructive effect. Wage rigidity, new jobs creation costs, low rate of unemployment benefits, lack of wage negotiation process, or no opportunity to contest. The labor market intends to be the major component of the whole world's economy at the different levels. At the macroeconomic level, the supply chain provided by employees and the demand which is formed by employers are fully involved parts which are influenced by the domestic and international markets dynamics while being under the age, education and, of course, migration rates which could be measured by and relevant to some economic categories as unemployment, total income and gross domestic product, and could be the reason of economic stagnation and cause the financial crisis. From time to time, during many centuries, scientific technology progress, in particular, had the positive effect on the labor market and opened new horizons and new job opportunities. But nowadays, at our fast paced developing world, it became a threat. Automation requires more complex tasks, more experience, and fast learning abilities. Some professions are disappeared, and some, in the nearest future, are going to be substituted by robotic systems, artificial intelligence, and cyber technologies, and causes to minimize wages rate. Internal and external labor markets. As the labor market is a major component of the economy, employers are trying to hire the best candidates, and the employees are trying to find the most favorable jobs for them. Jobs where they will feel comfortable, will be satisfied, and can develop themselves as personally as career way. Jobs where their ideas matter and respected by the managers. There are many features that employees are looking for in their ideal job, As the world is becoming more sophisticated and more challengeable in the fast-growing economic environment, also employees' requirements have started growing, and we can list some features that an ideal might have. For example, clear vision and mission, where the targets and aims are defined, so employees should know their company's core values and direction. Honest leadership. Employees always feel better and are more motivated when they are managed by the honest and loyal managers. Possibility of the growth. This aspect is a crucial for a worker. If she has a huge possibility of promotion when the latter is a hard worker and motivated, because everyone wants self-realization and development, which is the big part of the candidate's motivation. Company culture and spirit is also another huge aspect, because when the environment is friendly and warm, every employee wants to engage in it and to be part of it. Furthermore, this feature is substantially strong because an individual who feels at work comfortable and there is a friendly environment created around him, her, she will be much more productive than the one with less engagement and desires. Moreover, an organization has to have little politics, but adjustable on the employees, not structure, as it is needed. Open communication is one of the important points. The openness has to be as between the colleagues, also as between the company and employees. The aims, targets, and the ways how an organization wants to reach them should be open and available to the relevant level of teammates. Honest feedback from the direct managers is a very important aspect for employees. Working with passionate colleagues and friendly environment is also a key point at work because the organization that hire only resume are less passionate and successful than the ones with passionate, friendly, and open-minded ones. Approachable management is also crucial as the employees can speak with them directly without restrictions could solve more problems than with the strict and isolated ones. Overall, the crucial is great environment. As we mentioned before, the atmosphere is the key aspect in the worker's career path because team buildings and other engaging activities let the colleagues know each other better and warmer. Therefore, labor market challenge and way of work is strongly related to the modern working style and employees' need as today in rapidly challengeable and unpredictable everything. There are internal and external labor market. Internal labor market is defined as the activities that the hiring and the promotion of an employee could be inside the organization step by step from the junior to the senior level. Thus, the new candidates are selected from the old workers, not the external ones. Moreover, it contains searching applicants from the existed employees. Internal labor markets often we can see in Japanese companies as they prefer to hire inside an organization than to attract the new ones. There are some advantages promotion into an organization in the way of the developing internal resources. For instance, a company can implement training and development into the organization. They can select existing leaders and conduct training to the other employees for sharing their knowledge and experience. This method works efficiently and could be done at every level and in every division. Afterwards, the employees will be higher qualified and more knowledgeable. They will become smarter, more competitive, and productive, which is the crucial aspect of any organization all over the world. And result will be shown in the near future activities of a company when its performance will enhance and profit will increase. Overall, result based companies have to think about investing in the internal resources as it wants to be profitable in the business. External labor market is defined as the system when an organization is attracting candidates from outside the organization. They select from the external pool of the candidates with a new talent acquisition method. For example, when a company has a vacant position on the senior manager and an employer is tasked to look for a new applicant from the external source of pooling. The advantage could be new ideas, aspiration, and new challenges from this point of view. Labor market also is divided as a primary and secondary labor markets. Primary labor market consists of high-paying jobs, long-lasting full employment, where an employee can build his/her career path. Moreover, it could be motivated to serve their employer because of insurance policies, health benefits, pension wages, or job security. The secondary labor market is defined as a low-paying jobs, such as part-time, internships, and temporary work. Often it is performed by university or college students, frequently changing job positions or roles, so it is not characterized as stabilized or long-term work. Therefore, it refers more to solve quick financial problems rather building the career path. Chapter 3: HR Management Role in an Organization. There is an old saying that you can't make a silk purse of a sow's ear. This holds true in the context of an organization's human resources strategy, since without the right people in place, the human resources strategy will be expending effort on making good the shortfall rather than capitalizing on the asset and leveraging for optimum organization performance. Roberts, 1997, page 26. Therefore, human resources management is the most difficult and interesting object. Unlike the material factors, it has the ability to critically evaluate the requirements and decide whether or not to solve the problem. In addition, the employees have their own subjective interests and are highly sensitive towards the management influence. In the modern stage of scientific technical revolution, the role of an individual has been significantly changed. Now people are considered not as candidates, but as human resources. So relating to staff costs are not considered as maddening expenses, but as investments in human capital. Today, it is the main source of profit in developing enterprises. The economic literature and relevant materials generalization lead to the conclusion that the HR management contains all these characteristics for the organizational activities, with the aim of providing the employees the rational use of human motivation and to drive the targeted enterprises for best final results. In modern economic literature, there are several options for explaining the concept of HR management. Among them are issues related to managing personnel in the foreground, such as motivation, goal, function, tasks, and others. Nowadays, there are two groups of HR management goals: organizational and personal. Obviously, here is the leading place for organizational purposes. It is related to the effectiveness of the organization. In the HR management, we can define two main stages: staff management and human resources management. The primary goal of HR management is to ensure the organization's mission, strategic objectives, and concrete tasks to gain the most important human resources and effective use of them. HR management has to respond the following questions: what the role do human resources play in achieving strategic goals of the organization? How much profession, qualification, experience, and education needs the organization and its structural subdivision? How to attract and select them? Who, what, how, and what time should be done, who is responsible and for what, how to plan and measure, evaluate the completed work, its volume and quality, who with whom, what field, and how to cooperate. How should the competition and vacancies be conducted as objectively as possible? Who and why the candidates want to work? What is their motivation and what do they want to achieve? And how does it fit the interests of the organization? Are all in their place who should be promoted? How effective is the remuneration and stimulation of the workforce? Who has conducted and in what form? Do they know what and how to do it? Are they always receiving proper instructions? How effectively do they make time management? Main principles of HR management are science, planning, collecting of the employees, selection and layout, centralization and decentralization, functional and target management, control of decision taking, and etc. In American and Japanese corporations often use HR management principles such as permanent hire, control of the fulfillment of trust-based assignments, compliance of control and corporate control, decision making by the consensus, decision making with the consent of most of the employees. The construction of the HR management system has its own principles. The construction could be defined in two groups. First, principles of characterization of HR management system. The second, principles for determining the development of HR management system. All the principles of its building are in constant coexistence. The first group belongs to the following principles: optimization of the ratio of managerial orientation, potential imitation, economics, progression, prospect, complexity, operationality, optimality, simplicity, science, agreement, sustainability, etc. The second group of HR management system belongs to the following principles: concentration, specialization, parallelism, adaptation, reciprocity, continuity, and etc. The core aspects of the HR management are definition of staff policies based on the goals of the organization and strategic planning. Staff planning to determine quantitative and professional qualification requirements on them. Staffing and adaptation of new workers. Search and attraction of candidates. Selection of the best ones. Training and development of employees. Staff training, retraining, qualification raising, reserve formation and work with them, career planning, evaluation and control, evaluation of work results, control of labor and performing discipline, monitor all directions of work with staff, enhance the potential of human resources system of material and moral simulation, personnel awareness system, social protection and privilege of personnel, organization of organizational culture and development of labor morals. The basic rules of HR management are compliance of the personnel management system with the peculiarities of the development of the system, the situation and trends, systemic definition of HR management, the combination of centralization and decentralization. The level of centralization of HR management is dependent on the development of the production and the form of its organization. The proportional combination of the elements of the HR management system and subsystems. Production problem proportions implies the changes should be accompanied by changes as well as the ability of the HR management system and the ratio of operators to the production system, etc. The HR management system should be identical and complex. It is necessary to create a complex system of management and not a matrix. Change of composition and content of HR management functions implies that Along with the development some functions of HR management, some of them are decreasing. In addition, their contents change, minimizing the number of their levels. Less the number of management levels, the more efficient it works. It is noteworthy that all the appropriateness of HR management has not yet been discovered or studied. With this, the irregularity, as in the law, may result in changes in production and management conditions. Such events are relatively common when moving to the market economy. The principles of personal management imply basic rules, regulations, and norms defined by the personnel and specialists in HR management process. They express the objective requirements of economic laws and regulations. Hence, the principles of managing staff are in itself objective. Any organization can serve specialized functions of HR management, including creating a unified system of personnel based on contemporary conceptual methodical principles, such as to protect the requirements of the legislative and normative base of the country in the field of HR management and improve the internal regulatory and administrative acts of the organization. Periodic analysis of personnel management with preparation and implementation of its perfection development recommendations. Development of human resources, implementing administrative and stationary procedures for staff management. Coordinate performance of HR management functions in the organization. Organizational methodological support and management. It is quite important for the construction of the personnel to identify and officialize those functions. The structural subdivisions of the organization, both state and private firm, institution, agency, company, etc., are usually divided into two groups, line and functional subdivision. The linear subdivisions carry out the main goals and objectives of the organization's mission and strategy. For example, budget, tax, investment, treasury offices in the Ministry of Finance, rector, deans, chairs and laboratories in universities, and so on. As for the functional subdivisions, they support the overall successful work of the entire organization and its subdivisions, such as the staff, financial, economic services, accounting, etc. It should be emphasized that the organization's internal structure and allocation of functional subdivisions in HR management does not mean that this is only the prerogative of the HR and line structural subdivisions are free from the performance for the HR management function. Regarding the structural subdivisions of the organization's line, their functions and responsibilities related to HR management are essential to the following considerations. In early times, and unfortunately sometimes today, is totally unacceptable attitude between managers and their employees. They never paid attention to this function, and also manager was taught specifically to the basic principles and methods of managing their employees. These were their secondary functions, which were more subtly, intrinsically, and intuitively performed, and so are still continuing today. Unfortunately, all above mentioned are also related to the state institutions, even the highest hierarchical levels of state governance. It is difficult to make a different conclusion when many such institutions do not have the descriptions and specifications of the work. Also, lack of planning. Their reporting is not being monitored, audited or encouraged, or disciplinary action when computers are in the gambling or better case as printing machines. When all these things are normal and everyday, nobody asks for answers. In general, all the managers at the top level or medium level should know and understand working tasks daily. And to ensure that the staff management is one of the foremost and most priority functions. None of the managers should not forget that finally people are doing everything and deciding too. Most modern techniques and technologies are run by people. Furthermore, linear managers should pay particular attention to the personal management strategies, planning, managing, organizing, controlling, evaluating, adjusting, instructioning, encouraging them, adapting them to new situations, creating a positive sanitary, hygienic, and psychological environment, human relations, and other development aspects. Of course, the linear structural units of the organization and their managers should be personally and actively cooperating with staff management, as well as with the methodical management and coordinating service of these functions. Generally, from the view of the real situation, nature management must be considered one of the priority areas for increasing the professional level of managers in the state and non-state institutions.